Isaac Watts, The Improvement of the Mind. Chapter 1. 16 General Rules for Gaining Knowledge and Improvement. Number 1. Deeply possess your mind with the vast importance of a good judgment and the rich and inestimable advantage of right reasoning. Review the instances of your own misconduct in life. Think seriously with yourselves how many follies and sorrows you had escaped and how much guilt and misery you had prevented if, from your early years, you had but taken due pains to judge aright concerning persons, times, and things. This will awaken in you a lively vigor to address yourselves to the work of improving your reasoning powers and seizing every opportunity and advantage for that end. Number 2. Consider your weaknesses, frailties, and mistakes of human nature in general, which arise from the very constitution of a soul united to an animal body, and by this subjected to many inconveniences. Consider the many additional weaknesses, mistakes, and frailties which are derived from our original apostasy from a state of innocence. How much our powers of understanding are yet more darkened, enfeebled, and imposed upon by our senses, our fancies, our unruly passions, etc. Consider the depth and difficulty of many truths, and the flattering appearances of falsehood, whence arise an infinite variety of dangers to which we are exposed in our judgment of things. Read with eagerness those authors that treat of the doctrine of prejudices, prepossessions, and springs of error, on purpose to make your soul watchful on all sides, that it suffer not itself to be imposed upon by any of them. See more on this subject. Logic, Part 2, Chapter 3, Part 3, Chapter 3. Number 3. A slight view of things so momentous is not sufficient. You should therefore contrive and practice some proper methods to acquaint yourself with your own ignorance and to impress your mind with a deep and painful sense of the low and imperfect degrees of your present knowledge, that you may be incited with labor and activity to pursue after greater measures. Among others, you may find some such methods as these successful. 1. Take a wide survey now and then of the vast and unlimited regions of learning. Let your meditations run over the names of all the sciences, with their numerous branchings and innumerable particular themes of knowledge, and then reflect how few of them you are acquainted with in any tolerable degree. The most learned of mortals will never find occasion to act over again what is fabled of Alexander the Great, that when he had conquered what was called the Eastern world, he wept for more worlds to conquer. The worlds of science are immense and endless. 2. Think what a numberless variety of questions and difficulties there are, belonging even to that particular science in which you have made the greatest progress, and how few of them there are in which you have arrived at a final and undoubted certainty, excepting only those questions in the pure and simple mathematics, whose theorems are demonstrable and leave scarce any doubt. And yet even in the pursuit of some of these, mankind have been strangely bewildered. 3. Spend a few thoughts sometimes on the puzzling inquiries concerning vacuums and atoms, the doctrine of infinites, indivisibles, and incommensurables in geometry, wherein there appear some insolvable difficulties. Do this on purpose, to give you a more sensible impression of the poverty of your understanding and the imperfection of your knowledge. This will teach you what a vain thing it is to fancy that you know all things, and will instruct you to think modestly of your present attainments, when every dust of the earth and every inch of empty space surmounts your understanding and triumphs over your presumption. Arithmo had been bred up to accounts all his life, and thought himself a complete master of numbers, but when he was pushed hard to give the square root of the number 2, he tried at it, and labored long in a millesimal fractions, until he confessed there was no end of the inquiry. And yet he learned so much modesty by this perplexing question that he was afraid to say it was an impossible thing. It is some good degree of improvement when we are afraid to be positive. 4. Read those accounts of those vast treasures of knowledge which some of the dead have possessed, and some of the living do possess. Read and be astonished at the almost incredible advances which have been made in science. Acquaint yourself with some persons of great learning, that by converse among them and comparing yourselves with them, you may acquire a mean opinion of your own attainments, and may be thereby animated with new zeal to equal them as far as possible, or to exceed. Thus, let your diligence be quickened by a generous and laudable emulation. If Vanellus had never met with Citurio and Polydes, he had never imagined himself a mere novice in philosophy, nor ever set himself to study in good earnest. Remember this, that if upon some few superficial acquirements you exalt and swell yourself as though you were a man of learning already, you are thereby building a most impassable barrier against all improvement. You will lie down and indulge idleness, and rest yourself contented in the midst of deep and shameful ignorance. Multe ad scientiam pervenescient si se elu pervenissi mon puthassant.